Hi guys, my name is Kate and I'm the editor of Knit Now magazine.
Hi, I'm Angela and I'm editor of Your Crochet and Knitting magazine.
And we are here today to talk about socks. I know this is a project that a lot of you always have on the needles, but I think a lot of people pick them up particularly on the run up to Christmas, because who doesn't like getting a pair of socks in their stocking at Christmas? And there's nothing really better than a pair of hand knit socks. We are both working with two brand new limited edition yarns from one of our favourite yarn suppliers, West Yorkshire Spinners. I am working with Fairy Lights, which is a special limited edition Christmas yarn, which is available from all West Yorkshire Spinners stockists now. And Angela is working with the new Marie Curie colourway inspired by daffodils, which is only available from City Knits, otherwise known as Christine's Wool Shop in Bourneville in Birmingham. And that one, £2 from every ball goes to Marie Curie. Last night I popped a question up on Instagram asking any of you if you have questions about sock knitting, anything that you find particularly tricky that you wanted advice on. So we are going to go straight into that now. Angela, what questions have we had?
Okay, we have had how to pick up stitches after knitting the heel without laddering or making holes in the finished sock.
I think this is one of the most common questions. We had a lot of questions on this, and particularly avoiding a hole at the point where you first start picking up heels, so where you knit across the instep and then you start picking up stitches at the heel. So I'm going to pop my knitting down now, and we're going to take a little look at a sock which is coming up actually in issue 96 of Knit Now. So you can see the point that we're looking at. It's this line here, and particularly this point at the top of this triangle here. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you'll usually start, if you're doing top-down socks, you'll start here, work the rib, work the leg, and then you work this heel flap across the back, like that, and then you turn the heel, which is the most fun bit of knitting socks, and then the next round, you come around here, and then round and down the other side. So you'll work these stitches, and then you have to pick up and knit stitches all the way down this edge. And this designer has done it beautifully, so you can see there's no gaps there. Now, the thing that I always find is that it's better to be safe than sorry and pick up more stitches than you need, particularly at this little join here. I will tend to pick up an extra stitch from the gap, and then you can always work extra decreases here to even out. And then when you're picking up stitches along this line here, make sure you're working into both loops of the stitch at the edge. So it can be really, really easy to just put your needle through one loop of a stitch, but you need to make sure you're getting it through both those loops at the edge of your work there. So we come back up to us. What I will always recommend to absolutely anyone who's having any problems knitting socks, the best tutorial is Christine from the Winnick Mum blog. She's got an amazing beginner's sock knitting tutorial. She covers all of this really, really well with pictures. That's actually the sock that I'm knitting right now is from her instructions. It's a great place to start. It covers loads and loads of common problems, and we all find our own solutions to things. What works for me might not work for someone else, but Christine's solutions work for most people. So, any more questions, Angela?
How to avoid holes at heel angle.
Well, that's what we just covered.
I thought so.
Yeah. We had that question so many times. It's the most
that's
common.
just a different way of wording it.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, if you get a hole there, just with a little bit of waste yarn at the end, just from the inside of your sock, just stitch it up inside, and then weave in your ends.
I like this next one. Sizing socks for other people. Some people think you're weird if you ask them to measure their feet. Depends how close you are, I imagine.
It does a little bit. There are some guides online to that sort of approximate between shoe size and sock size. You know what, the best option is to measure if you can. What I've done occasionally is, ask someone to tie a bit of string or a bit of yarn around their foot to where they want it to fit and just give that to you if they don't want to measure it, because then you can measure that bit of string.
I suppose that allows for the stretch on if it's the particular yarn that you're going to use as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also I know nobody likes to swatch, particularly in something small like a sock, but tension always matters. Whatever you're knitting, tension does matter. And when you're knitting a sock, there's a lot of stitches on the needle, so a small variation in tension can actually make quite a big difference. So if you are coming out with ill-fitting socks, either too big or too small, you should check your tension. Sorry. Worst case scenario, you give the socks to someone else that they will fit. And also,
or hang it up for Christmas.
Yeah. Also, don't knit from a sock pattern that just says small, medium, large and doesn't give you any measurements. That's a big one for me. We always make sure we have measurements for everything in Knit Now, because for that very reason, it's one person's medium is another person's small. So always make sure you're knitting from a pattern that actually has measurements in it.
A little bit how long is a piece of yarn.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, next one. How to get a good fit. I'm finishing a short row heel. I'm always one step ahead.
Okay, so there's two parts to this question. A short row heel, if you are not familiar with it, I've not got one with me, an example of a short row heel sock, but I will put some examples up on the screen so you'll see it appear here. A short row heel is quite often used actually when you're knitting with this kind of yarn that's self-patterning. Often people will use a plain colour for the heels and toes, which looks fantastic, and it means that you don't disrupt the pattern of the yarn. To get a good fit in a short row heel, you need a particular shaped foot, unfortunately. Some people will fit a short row heel well, other people won't, and you can't really control that, and it's a bit of trial and error. You can do things like, you can, usually on a short row heel, the short row section takes up half of the stitches on your needle. You can make that take up more stitches or fewer stitches, which will change the fit of the sock. But to guarantee a good fit, that's tricky. And yeah, unless you can change the shape of your feet, it might just be pot luck. Getting a good finish. My favourite short row heel method is known as the Sherman heel. We will pop a link to that in the blog. Or you can just pop it into Google, Sherman heel. It uses quite an unusual way of picking up the wraps and things like that, and it means you get a lovely neat finish. That's my favourite method. And again, you can end up with little holes at the corner of a short row heel, but because particularly if you are using a short row heel to introduce a contrast colour, just use your yarn ends when you're weaving them in, just to close up that gap at the corners.
Next one. Okay, the benefits of top up versus top down, because we're doing top down.
We are doing top down. This, I think, is probably the method of sock knitting that's been around and is most common. So if we take a little close-up look at my knitting now, you'll see that I started here, which is the stretchy rib, which will be the cuff of the yarn, and I'm knitting in this direction down. At some point I will hit the heel, I'll do the heel, and then I'll carry on down to the toe. So if we look at this finished sock, you will have started here, gone this way, down, done the heel, come round, turned round, gone along this way, and finished with some decreases, and then usually Kitchener stitch to close the toe. I knit most of my socks top down, just because that's the way that I'm most familiar with, and I can do it sort of without thinking. But if you want to be able to try on your sock as you go a little bit easier, if you want to make the absolute most of the amount of yarn you've got, things like that, toe up is a great option, because if we take a look at this sock, you can start at the toe with usually what's known as Judy's Magic Cast On, which is an invisible cast on that goes in two directions, and then you go up the sock and you increase at the gusset, and then work your heel, and then come up this way, and then you go, and you can probably guess the main benefit is you can carry on going in the leg until you run out of yarn, so you can more easily get the most out of your ball of yarn. They both produce almost identical looking and wearing and fitting socks, to be honest. It's just personal preference, really. Like I say, with the toe up, starting with Judy's Magic Cast On and ending with Jenny's Super Stretchy Bind Off. Both techniques that we usually cover in the magazine when we include toe up socks. Gives you what I think is some of the best finishes, but there's so many options with socks. Could be here all day.
I guess that leads on to the last question. I'm getting a sloppy cast off. When doing toe up, what should I do?
Yeah, I think Jenny's Super Stretchy is the one that we usually recommend, because obviously with a cast off, most cast off, the most common cast off, which is just the knitted cast off where you knit a stitch, knit another stitch, pass one over, it's quite firm, and that's not really what you want around your ankle with your sock, particularly if you've got a longer sock that's going further up your leg. It's not ideal.
Well, I guess you get to put your socks on quicker.
Yeah.
Stretching.
Yeah.
You're not going to fight with them.
Yeah, and they're not going to cut in. I know particularly anyone with poor circulation isn't going to want a sock that's cutting in. So yeah, I think that's all of our questions. Thank you so much to everyone for sending them in. We also have to give a little shout out and thank you to not only West Yorkshire Spinners for the yarn, but Clover, who have provided our needles that we're using at the moment. So again, we'll switch to the close-up camera so you can see. These are Clover Takumi bamboo needles. They're lovely and light and soft, really smooth. I have whipped through this little sock leg since I think I cast on yesterday, and I've just been doing it in between tasks at work. They also come in circulars, which are great. So if you're looking for some new sock needles to try, these ones are really, really fantastic. And if you're looking for some new yarn to try, we've got some great news because we're going to do a little giveaway. We've got some balls of this lovely Fairy Lights yarn to give away. So if you follow the link to the blog posts, there will be a link to the giveaway there that you can enter. So good luck with that. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget that there is a pair of socks in every issue of Knit Now if you are fond of knitting socks, which I certainly am. I'm slow, but I'm very fond of it. If you have any comments, questions, leave them down below or shoot me a message. We're always happy to help with all of your knitting queries, and we will see you again next time.
Bye.